The new Bristol tire apparently broke Goodyear's sandbelt machine. NASCAR addresses the trackhouse cars driving off track post-race on Sunday. We'll talk about ratings, and Kevin Harvick wants to move the Bristol night race to Sunday. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. The ratings for Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race at Gateway came in, and the viewership numbers are just not very good. 1.525 million viewers tuned in to watch Sunday's race at Gateway, the second race of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, and that is down from the 2.5 million viewers that tuned in to watch last year's race at Gateway, which was on FS1 and was not a playoff race. Last year's playoff race in this slot, the second race of the playoffs, that would be Watkins Glen. It got 1.8 million viewers, so it was still down from that. But compared to Gateway last year to Gateway this year, that is a 39% drop in viewership, and that is really bad. At the same time, Formula One saw their most viewed Italian Grand Prix ever over on ESPN. 1.4 million viewers tuned in to watch that, and they're getting increasingly closer to NASCAR. And at some point, I think NASCAR hopefully sits back and tries to look at things that are changing here. Obviously, a couple of things to note here. One, Formula One did not go up head-to-head against the NFL. NASCAR did. NASCAR went head-to-head against week one of the NFL. And obviously, you're always going to see viewership drop in week one of the NFL. We'll see what happens on Saturday night for the Bristol night race. But we know traditionally Saturday night races don't have very good viewership, which we'll touch on that in a couple segments from now. But overall, 1.5 million viewers, it's tough. It's rough. You put it on USA, that's not a channel most people are looking for in terms of like a casual fan that's like, oh yeah, I'll check out NASCAR this weekend. Unless you're a diehard, you, me, other people watching this, you know it's going to be on USA. Yeah, it's a tough channel to try to put sports on and expect people to be able to find it. It's not as easy as finding an FS1, ESPN, ESPN2, something like that. So 1.525 million viewers tuned in, and hopefully it gets better before it gets worse, because I want to see viewership go up. I want to see it go up. And obviously right now people are going to be like, oh, the on-track product's not good. That's why we're having these struggles. There's a lot of things that go into it. Right now we're missing some storylines as well. I would say there's not anything super compelling happening outside of like the NASCAR lawsuit. And if Denny Hamlin wins the championship, that's going to be super awkward, things like that. But he's got to make it to the championship race first. There's a lot of things that go into that. But let's get into another topic of the day, which was also spearheaded by Denny Hamlin, who I just mentioned there a second ago. On his podcast, Actions Detrimental, this week, Denny said that the new right side tire that Goodyear is bringing to Bristol this weekend is so soft that it broke Goodyear's sandbelt machine when they were testing out how long it took that tire to wear out. Now, we have heard this before. All the tires are going to wear. And there's a saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee too, and it says, if you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, can't get fooled again. Now, we've been fooled before. You're not fooling us again here, Goodyear. Going into this race on Saturday night, fully expecting there to not be crazy tire wear like there was, because I like to come in and temper expectations. You under-promise and over-deliver. That's how you should always live your life here, especially when you're in the professional corporate world as well. And that's how I'm approaching the Goodyear tire issue coming up this weekend at Bristol. Because guess what? Back in the springtime at Bristol, we thought we were going to see the same thing that we saw in spring 2024 at Bristol. In practice, the tires wore out. In the race, they could have gone 250, 300 laps on a set of tires and been perfectly fine by that. So hopefully we don't get that. Hopefully we do get some tires that wear out. Matt Weaver from Motorsport, sorry, my apologies, over at Motorsport, did talk to Goodyear in a story that he did on Tuesday. And Goodyear's goal is kind of to get these tires at Bristol to wear out around like that 70 lap mark. And I think that's a pretty reasonable number. I think somewhere between 78 and 80 is probably like a good lap count for the tire to start to wear out here. And we'll see if they are able to achieve that this weekend. It is worth noting, though, that Denny Hamlin did say on his podcast as well that tire that they put on the sandbelt machine that just immediately shredded apart and kind of locked up the machine there, that was fresh off the line. Literally came off the manufacturing line, went right onto the machine there, and did not have time to cure. Tires need time to cure. Rubber needs time to cure. So you got to take that with a grain of salt there. I would not expect any crazy tire wear like that, but hopefully we do get some. They're running the same left side tires that they did back in the springtime. I'm not too worried about that. It's ultimately what comes down to the right side compound and how quickly that wears out, because guess what? That's where all the load is going on the car when it goes through the corner, and that's what we want to see start to wear out. Ultimately, it'll come down to Saturday night. I guess we're not really going to know until we actually know, and maybe they'll start off running super slow on the bottom once again, and then eventually Kyle Larson's just going to take off and go. But yeah, I feel like we've been duped twice now between the fall race last year and the spring race this year, that we should really temper expectations. And then if, hey, Goodyear over delivers, we'll all be praising them on Monday. But if we get another tire that goes 250 laps and just does not wear out, people are going to probably start to be pretty upset about it going forward. Remember after the race on Sunday at Gateway when both of the trackhouse cars on the cooldown lap drove off track into the grass, that being Ross Chastain and Shane Van Gisbergen, and it was noted by Alex Bowman over the radio, and he said, that's cool, like in a sarcastic tone, and everybody's like, all right, nah. Don't typically see people do that, but that's an interesting approach here. General consensus is that they were just trying to pick up as much weight as they could, get anything they could on the tires, hopefully kick some dirt and everything up into the underbody, just get any bit of weight that they possibly could because these teams cut their weight incredibly close. Well, NASCAR responded on Tuesday. Brad Moran went on SiriusXM NASCAR and he said, quote, "We have rules that could put teams in a real bad spot when we see that, so we'll make it pretty clear to them moving forward, starting at Bristol, what that means." Now, I can guarantee Brad and everybody else at NASCAR that nobody will be driving through the grass this weekend at Bristol, but going forward, I can see it being an obvious issue here. The last thing NASCAR wants is like 36 cars just driving through the grass post-race, trying to pick up as much dirt and debris as they could. Imagine if it had rain, everybody's just trying to get mud caked up into their car, and then everybody gets stuck in the infield there because, well, Gen 7 cars are incredibly low to the ground and you kind of can beach them pretty quickly here. So obviously they want to try to nip this in the bud as soon as it starts. Like they don't want to go with the skew that, like, remember the old Car Tomorrow had when teams were skewing those out. They had to finally bring them back into alignment there. Teams trying to snap the rear ends back into place on the cooldown lap. NASCAR is just trying to get ahead of this before it gets out of hand, essentially here. But leave it up to Trackhouse for always trying to find a way to force NASCAR to make up a new rule or at least reinforce the rules that they have, whether it be the wall ride from Ross Chastain or whether it be driving off-road here, trying to pick up as much debris as they could. I will say, though, now that NASCAR is paying attention to the teams driving into the grass, that teams are going to be hunting debris post-race on the racing surface more than ever. They're going to be trying to pick up any bit of rubber that they absolutely can. And if you're a guy that's back in like 24th and 25th like these boys were, you're going to be picking up just absolute scraps by the time everybody else has already driven through there. So yeah, I get people. Some people are probably going to be upset about it. Listen, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I think we all understand that. But it does look kind of ridiculous when you have your cars just driving off the track on the cooldown lap there. Like, clearly you're doing this for a reason here because you may be out of compliance. So NASCAR is just trying to make sure that everybody stays in line and does not do that going forward. Can't do it at the Charlotte Roval, at least not on the front stretch. There are obviously other opportunities for you to be able to do that there. Talladega is another difficult one. And they continue to pave over a lot of the grass areas on these racetracks. It becomes harder and harder for them to be able to do this. Martinsville still famously got rid of their grass in the corners, which I still to this day makes me mad because it just looks so bad with just concrete right there. At least paint it green and then put your little sponsorship logos over top of it if you really need to there. But I yearn for the days of old. Somebody go out there and nostalgia post that like that one kid does on Twitter every single day, because I guess there's a market for that going forward. On his podcast that masquerades as a TV show this week, Kevin Harvick said that it's time for NASCAR to move the Bristol night race from Saturday night to Sunday, because he doesn't care about people in the stands. He wants to see a good viewership number. Now, it's widely known that putting races on Saturday night means you're going to get a lower rating, means you're going to get a lower viewership number. It just is what it is. But is there nothing sacred in this sport anymore? Moving the Bristol night race to a Sunday afternoon race or a Sunday night race, which you could maybe convince me to do that. But there's just something about the Bristol night race on Saturday night that puts butts into seats. It's just something that gets people excited about it. And putting it on Sunday night is going to make it a lot harder for people to come. And now I know Harvick says he doesn't care about attendance, but guess what? If they move it to Sunday and that's a 3/4 full stadium, half full stadium, like we see in the springtime at some races, Harvick is absolutely going to come onto his podcast and be like, did you see all the empty seats at Bristol? This is absolutely ridiculous. You know that's what would happen, and they are just going to create a new talking point for themselves, even though he advocated for this. At no point should the Bristol night race ever be moved to Sunday, unless, of course, it's a rain out, which at this point, I don't think it has rained anywhere in this region. Well, not in my area, at least for the last 2 weeks. I don't know about the Tennessee area, but yeah, you're pretty good on not getting a rain delay this time of year. So moving it to Sunday just really doesn't make too much sense. I get it from a rating standpoint, from a viewership standpoint. I absolutely understand. But at the same time, you'd be going up against the NFL. Now, on Saturday night this week, it's an unfortunate matchup timing for NASCAR. The race goes green a little after 7:30, and you also have to deal with Georgia playing Tennessee just down the road in Knoxville. That's a 3:30 kickoff. But in the nightcap, on Saturday night, you have Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. You also will have Miami versus South Florida, the powerhouse that is the Bulls down in Tampa. So there's a number of games that are going to be going up against this as well. It's tough. Would you rather go up against the NFL or would you rather go up against the NFL in certain areas? It's a hard call to make, right? Both of them are super popular. Both of them are going to get better viewership than NASCAR. I mean, heck, the Nebraska-Cincinnati Bearcats game on Thursday night to kind of get college football season started at Arrowhead, that started at 9 o'clock at night, still got over 3 million viewers. Meanwhile, NASCAR goes head-to-head against the NFL at 3 o'clock on Sunday this past week and gets 1.525 million viewers. So it's tough. It's a tough battle for NASCAR going forward, but ultimately moving the Bristol night race to Sunday, yeah, no thanks. I'm going to do a hard pass on that one. So let me know in the comments what you thought about the viewership from this past weekend's race, whether or not the Bristol tire, do you think it's going to wear out? Do you think it's not going to wear out? NASCAR addressing trackhouse cars going off track, and should Bristol night race move to Sunday? I don't think it should, and I think everybody else is probably going to be on board with that. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.